Okay, we go to the flop. We had a pretty dry flop. 6-6-9, no flush draws. And this first player checks, and the first thing I want to mention about my thought process is this player is not going to factor into my decision making at all. He's got less than a pot sized bet left in front of him, and I'm so far ahead of his range, just in general, that any C bet or anything I do, he's really not going to factor in. If his money goes in, that's fine, but if it doesn't, that's fine. But it's really not going to factor into my decision making at all because I'm so deep with this other player here that, and I'm so far ahead of his range in general that I don't even really need to think about this money in front of him. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my standard C bet just like I would with anything on this flop, which is usually about 2/3 pot on a board this dry, like a paired board. After I've three bet, and the same size I'd bet with my air, with aces, with six, with my whole range. So um, you always need to be kind of betting the same sizes and the same scenarios. Otherwise, players even at the lower stakes these days are good enough to notice if you bet like one size with your air and one size with your big hands in pots like this. They definitely start picking up on it. So you need to make sure you balance it with your whole range. Okay, and July Rocket quickly raises me to 44, and this is a really interesting spot for a couple reasons. First of all, we're so deep. We're like 300 big blinds deep, which is really deep. At any table, at any time. And being that deep, I would normally just fold this hand without a second thought. Just kings on a board like this, being this deep. Because even if I suspect, you know, my opponent might be trying to make a play or you might be bluffing, you still can't ship 300 big blinds in most of the time in a spot like this, just based on a little bit of suspicion. However, I start thinking about how this player's been coming after me a little bit, and I can already tell based on some of the things he did in the first part of the video that he's trying to make things happen. He's aggressive, and I'm already getting under his skin a little bit. And I start thinking about the sizing of his raise and how fast he did it. And we'll talk about the speed with which he raised first. A long time ago, Mike Carroll wrote a book, and it was like for a long time it was like the Bible for poker tells. And the one concept that went through the entire book was that most players always try to act weak when they're strong and act strong when they're weak. So a lot of players at low stakes, they'll do something real fast when they're trying to look strong, like put in a raise real fast when they're bluffing or semi-bluffing or something. So a lot of times players at these stakes, when you get into kind of like a weird tricky spot like this, and they do something really fast, a lot of times they're weak. Now, that being said, some players just get excited and raise or put in a big bet in certain spots. They're like real inexperienced players, and when you get a little bit higher stakes, sometimes players are smart enough to do it as a reverse tell. But I don't think any of those things are the case right here. I think it indicates more to me that he's trying to look strong, and then also, like I said, his sizing, I think is it's indicating weakness to me. Also, specifically the fact that the amount he raised is just a little bit more than a min raise. A min raise would have been 36. And secondly, he made it end in 4, which kind of makes a bigger pile of chips, and it kind of psychologically looks like more money, which a lot of players at lower stakes realize, and they try to use it when they're bluffing to try to look stronger, like it's more money. And we already saw in the first part of the series when he was trying to bluff me, he bet 21, which is kind of the same thing. It's kind of like a rougher odd number, and then in that case it also wasn't very much in relation to the pot, which is the same thing here. It's just a little bit more than min raise, so it's not very much in relation to the pot. And then he also tried to make it kind of like end in like an uneven kind of weird number like this. So that, along with the timing and just everything I know about this player, how aggressive his stats are, the fact that I think he's kind of getting fed up with me right now, all of this strongly indicates to me that he's bluffing. And for me to continue with my hand, I would have to be very, very certain that an opponent was bluffing when we're 300 big blinds deep. But in this case, I feel so strongly about it, not just because of his stats, our history, the sizing, and the timing. It's four different things that are indicating to me that he's most likely bluffing here. So I think altogether, it's more than enough evidence to go with my hand, even though we're 300 big blinds deep here. So I go ahead and ship it in, and this is the type of play that someone else saw without an explanation. It would look really crazy and stupid, but as you can see, I had really, really good sound reasoning, and I trusted my instincts, and I went with it. And sometimes you're gonna trust your instincts and go with it, and run into a big hand or be wrong and lose a big pot. But as you can see, my instincts were right on there, and I picked up a pretty big pot, making a play that was pretty risky by anyone's estimation. So